Katie Morrison pressed her small face against the cold window of New Terra Station and watched Jupiter's swirling clouds spin far below. The giant planet looked like a marble made of orange and brown cream, beautiful and endless. She had lived on this space station for 3 years now, but Jupiter still made her feel small and amazed. The station was huge, with long metal corridors that curved around in circles. Thousands of people lived here, but most of them were not human. Katie saw tall blue aliens with 4 arms walking past her window. She saw short green creatures with big eyes rolling by on wheels instead of legs. There were fuzzy purple beings that looked like walking carpets and silver robots that spoke in musical beeps. Katie was 8 years old and the only human child in her school class. All the other kids were aliens from different planets across the galaxy. At first, she thought this would be exciting. She had dreamed of making friends with alien children and learning about their strange worlds. But after 3 years, Katie had learned that being different was not always fun. "Katie, time for school," her mother called from the kitchen. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Morrison wore her blue security uniform with shiny badges on the chest. She was tall and strong, with short brown hair and kind eyes. Katie's father, Dr. Paul Morrison, sat at the table eating breakfast. He wore a white lab coat because he studied alien animals and plants all day. "Do I have to go today?" Katie asked, walking slowly to the table. She knew the answer, but she asked anyway. "Of course you do," her mother said, handing Katie a plate of eggs and toast. "Education is important, especially out here in space." Katie ate her breakfast without talking. She was thinking about school and the alien kids who would be there. They were not mean to her exactly, but they were not nice either. They thought humans were boring and stupid. They thought Earth was a small, unimportant planet full of primitive creatures who had nothing interesting to offer the galaxy. The worst one was Recital, a Zephyrian boy who was tall and thin with purple skin and silver hair. Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for being smart and cultured. They had beautiful cities on their home planet and made music that sounded like angels singing. Recital never let Katie forget that humans were the newest members of the Galactic Federation and the least impressive. "Humans only joined the Federation 20 years ago," Recital would say in his musical voice. "My people have been part of galactic civilization for over 2,000 years. We have art and music and poetry that your species could never understand." Katie finished her breakfast and grabbed her school bag. She hugged her parents goodbye and walked through the curved corridors toward the education center. The walls were made of smooth metal with blue lights running along the edges. Through the windows, she could see other parts of the station spinning slowly in the black space around Jupiter. When Katie reached her classroom, she saw that all the alien children were already there. Recital sat in the front row with 3 other Zephyrian kids. Behind them were the Andromedans, who looked like tall humans but with golden skin and white hair. In the back sat the Centaurians, who had thick gray skin and moved very slowly but were incredibly strong. Katie took her seat in the middle of the room. The teacher, Professor Zekmori, was a Zephyrian adult with dark purple skin and long silver hair that flowed like water. She was elegant and graceful, and her voice sounded like music when she spoke. "Good morning, students," Professor Zekmori said in her singing voice. "Today I have exciting news. Next week we will hold our annual Cultural Heritage Recital. Each species will present something special from their home world. This is a chance to share the beauty and wisdom of your people with others." Katie felt her stomach drop. She had heard about this recital from older students. It was a big event where parents and important people from all over the station came to watch. Each group of alien children would sing songs or perform dances or tell stories from their planets. It was supposed to celebrate the diversity of the galaxy. Recital raised his hand. "Professor, what will the human present?" he asked with a small smile that was not friendly. "Do humans even have culture worth sharing?" The other Zephyrian children giggled quietly. Katie felt her face turn red. She wanted to say something back, but the words would not come. Professor Zekmori looked uncomfortable. "I am sure Katie can find something appropriate from Earth to share," she said carefully. "But there is only one human child," said Vera Lynn, another Zephyrian girl with bright, silver eyes. How can she represent her entire species? Maybe she should not participate, suggested Nixvor, the third Zephyrian child. It would be embarrassing for everyone. Katie felt tears building in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She had learned not to cry in front of the alien children because it only made them think humans were even weaker. Actually, Crixtal said, standing up tall and looking down at Katie, I think she should participate. It would be interesting to see what humans consider art. Maybe she can show us some primitive earth noise and we can all learn what not to do. The alien children laughed. Even some of the nicer ones smiled a little. Katie felt very alone sitting in that room full of creatures from distant stars, who all seemed to agree that humans had nothing valuable to offer. I will do it, Katie said quietly, but her voice was steady. Everyone turned to look at her with surprise. I will represent Earth in the recital. Crixtal's smile grew wider. Excellent, he said. This should be very educational for all of us. As the day continued with regular lessons about galactic history and alien languages, Katie could not stop thinking about what she had agreed to do. She had never performed in front of people before. She did not know how to sing or dance or tell stories like the alien children could. She was just a regular 8-year-old girl from Earth who lived on a space station far from home. But something inside her felt angry and determined. These alien children thought humans were nothing special. They thought Earth was just a small, boring planet with simple people who had nothing to contribute to the galaxy. Katie wanted to prove them wrong, even though she had no idea how to do it. When school ended, Katie walked home through the station corridors feeling scared and excited at the same time. She had 1 week to find something from Earth that would show all these aliens that humans were worth respecting. She just had to figure out what that something would be. Katie sat at the dinner table that night, pushing her food around on her plate. Her parents were talking about their work, but she was not listening. Her mind kept going back to what happened at school and the promise she had made to perform at the recital. Katie, you are very quiet tonight, her father said, looking at her with concern. Is everything okay at school? Katie put down her fork and told her parents about the cultural heritage recital. She explained how the alien children had challenged her and how she had agreed to represent all of humanity. When she finished talking, her parents looked worried. Honey, you do not have to prove anything to those children, her mother said gently. You are just as good as any of them. But I do not know what to perform, Katie said. The Zephyrians have amazing songs that can make lights dance in the air. The Andromedans can create music that changes colors. What do humans have that is special like that? Her father leaned forward. Humans have many wonderful things, Katie. We have classical music by composers like Bach and Mozart. We have folk songs from different countries. We have modern music and jazz and rock and roll. But none of that is magical like what the aliens can do, Katie said sadly. Their music can do impossible things. Human music just sounds normal. That night, Katie lay in her bed looking out at the stars through her bedroom window. She thought about Earth, the planet she had left when she was 5 years old. She remembered green grass and blue skies and white clouds. She remembered her grandmother's house with the big garden full of flowers. But those memories felt far away now, like dreams from another life. The next day at school, the alien children were practicing for the recital. Katie watched Crixtal and the other Zephyrians rehearse their performance. When they sang together, their voices created silver light that floated through the air like tiny dancing stars. The other students gathered around to watch and clapped. When the song ended, "That was beautiful," said Jenkar, one of the Andromedan children. "Your people are so talented." Crixtal smiled proudly. "Music is the highest form of art in the galaxy," he said. "Only the most advanced civilizations can create true beauty with sound." Katie felt her cheeks burn. She knew Crixtal was talking about her and suggesting that humans were not advanced enough to make real music. After school, Katie went to the station's library. The librarian was a friendly robot named Unit 7, who had been programmed to help students with research. The library was huge with thousands of data files about every planet and species in the galaxy. "How can I help you today, Katie?" Unit 7 asked in its cheerful, electronic voice. I need to learn about human music, Katie said. Something special that I can perform at the recital. Unit 7's eyes lit up with blue light as it searched through the data files. I have found 847,293 examples of human music from Earth. What type would you like to study? Katie spent hours listening to different songs. She heard orchestra music that was beautiful but required many instruments. She heard rock music that was exciting but very loud. She heard jazz music that was complex and interesting but hard to understand. Everything seemed either too difficult or too simple. This is hopeless, Katie said after listening to her 20th song. Nothing sounds
special enough.
Perhaps you are looking for the wrong thing, Unit 7 suggested. The most powerful human music is not always the most complex. Sometimes the simplest songs carry the deepest meaning. Katie was about to give up when she remembered something. She thought about her great-grandmother, who had died when Katie was 6 years old. Great-grandma Morrison had lived to be 98 years old and had told Katie many stories about the old days on Earth. She had a beautiful voice and used to sing old songs while she cooked or worked in her garden. Unit 7, do you have any very old human songs, like really old ones that people used to sing a long time ago? The robot's eyes flashed again. I have many traditional folk songs from various Earth cultures. These songs were passed down through families for hundreds of years before being recorded. Katie listened to dozens of old songs from different countries. She heard work songs that farmers used to sing in the fields. She heard lullabies that mothers sang to their babies. She heard sad songs about people who had died and happy songs about celebrations and love. Then she heard it, a song called Danny, Boy That Came From Ireland, a Green Island on Earth. The melody was simple and sad and beautiful. It was about a young man going away to war and an old person waiting for him to come home. As Katie listened, she remembered her great-grandmother singing this exact song while she baked cookies in her kitchen. I want to learn this one, Katie said, pointing to the file. This is an excellent choice, Unit 7 said. This song is over 150 years old and has been sung by millions of humans. It requires no instruments, only the human voice. Katie spent the rest of the week learning the words and melody. She practiced in her bedroom, singing quietly so her parents would not hear. The song was not like the alien music with its magical effects and impossible sounds. It was just a simple melody with words about love and loss and hope. But something strange happened as Katie practiced. The song began to feel different. The words were about missing someone who was far away, and Katie thought about her great-grandmother and Earth and all the things she had left behind. The melody was sad, but also beautiful, like missing something precious but being grateful to have had it at all. On Friday, Ambassador Vex Nora came to the school to check on the recital preparations. She was a very important Zephyrian who worked with all the different species on the station. She was tall and elegant with perfect purple skin and silver hair that seemed to glow. When she spoke, her voice was like music. I'm excited to see what each group has prepared, she told the class. This recital is an important chance to share the finest achievements of our cultures. She watched each group practice. The Zephyrians sang their light-making song. The Andromedans performed a complex harmony that made geometric patterns appear in the air. The Centaurians told an ancient story with deep, rumbling voices that made the floor vibrate. Then Ambassador Vex Nora turned to Katie. And what will you be presenting, young human? Katie felt her heart beating fast. I am going to sing a traditional song from Earth called Danny Boy, she said. Ambassador Vex Nora looked puzzled. Just singing? No special effects or advanced techniques? No, ma'am. Just my voice. The ambassador exchanged glances with Professor Zek Mori. Both aliens looked concerned and a little embarrassed. Perhaps, Ambassador Vex Nora said carefully, we could help you choose something more sophisticated? Something that would better represent humanity's place in the galactic community. Katie felt her face turn red. She could see Crixtel and the other alien children trying not to laugh. They thought she was going to embarrass herself and prove that humans really were primitive. No, thank you, Katie said, trying to keep her voice steady. I want to sing Danny Boy. Ambassador Vex Nora sighed quietly. Very well, if that is what you choose. As Katie walked home that day, she wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Maybe the aliens were right. Maybe her simple song would sound stupid compared to their amazing performances. Maybe she would just prove that humans did not belong in the galaxy after all. But deep inside, something told her to keep going. The song meant something to her, something important that she could not put into words. She just hoped that would be enough. The day of the Cultural Heritage Recital arrived with bright artificial sunlight streaming through the station's windows. Katie woke up early, her stomach full of nervous butterflies. She had practiced Danny Boy every day for a week, but now, she wondered if she had made a huge mistake. The recital was being held in the Grand Amphitheater, the largest room on New Terra Station. It was a beautiful space with curved walls and a high ceiling painted to look like a starry sky. Hundreds of seats faced a wide stage where important events took place. Katie put on her best dress, a simple blue one that her mother had bought for special occasions. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a small 8-year-old girl with brown hair and worried eyes. She did not look like someone who could represent all of humanity. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her father said when she came to breakfast. But Katie could see the concern in his eyes too. "Are you sure you do not want us to help you choose a different song?" Her mother asked gently. "It is not too late to change your mind." Katie shook her head. "I want to sing Danny Boy. It feels right." Her parents exchanged looks but said nothing more. They knew their daughter was determined, even when she was scared. By evening, the Grand Amphitheater was filled with beings from dozens of different worlds. Katie peeked through the curtain at the side of the stage and saw hundreds of aliens in the audience. There were tall Zephyrians with their purple skin glowing softly in the lights. There were golden Andromedans sitting perfectly straight in their seats. There were massive Centaurians taking up extra space with their thick gray bodies. In the front row sat the most important visitors to the station. Admiral Rex Forthon from the Galactic Council had come specifically to see the recital. Next to him sat Dr. Yel Naja, the famous cultural expert who studied art from across the galaxy. Even Captain Morrison from the Earth diplomatic ship had arrived that morning to watch. Katie felt sick to her stomach. All these important people were going to watch her sing a simple old song with no special effects or magical abilities. She was going to disappoint everyone. Professor Zekmori appeared backstage looking elegant in flowing purple robes. "It is time to begin," she announced to all the student performers. "Remember, you are representing your entire species tonight. Make your people proud." The lights in the amphitheater dimmed, and Professor Zekmori walked onto the stage. Her voice carried perfectly through the large room as she welcomed everyone to the recital. "Tonight we celebrate the rich diversity of our galactic community," she said. "Each performance will show us the unique beauty that different worlds bring to our shared civilization." The first group to perform was the Andromedans. 3 children with golden skin and white hair stepped onto the stage wearing shimmering robes. When they began to sing, their voices created visible waves of color that danced through the air above their heads. The colors shifted from deep blue to bright gold to silver, painting pictures of their home worlds, crystal cities, and floating gardens. The audience clapped enthusiastically when the song ended. Admiral Rex Forthon nodded with approval, and Dr. Yel Naja made notes on her electronic pad. Next came the Centaurians. 2 massive children, each one bigger than a human adult, stood on the stage and began telling an ancient story about their planet's 3 moons. Their voices were so deep they made the floor vibrate. As they spoke, holographic images appeared showing great battles and heroic deeds from thousands of years ago. Again, the audience clapped with respect and admiration. Then it was time for the Zephyrians. Crixtal led 5 other children onto the stage. They wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver, and their purple skin glowed more brightly under the stage lights. Katie watched from the side as they arranged themselves in a perfect circle. When they began to sing, something magical happened. Their voices blended together in harmony so perfect it seemed impossible. Silver light began to flow from their mouths, forming shapes in the air. First came simple geometric patterns. then complex designs that looked like flowers and birds and dancing figures. The light creatures moved and spun above the singers' heads while the audience watched in amazement. The song built to a crescendo, and the light figures joined together to form a single brilliant star that pulsed with the rhythm of the music. When the song ended, the star exploded into thousands of tiny sparkles that floated down like snow before disappearing. The audience erupted in applause. People stood up and cheered. Admiral Rex Vorthon smiled widely, and Dr. Yelnazia nodded with obvious approval. Even the usually serious Centaurians made rumbling sounds of appreciation. Krixtal bowed deeply, his silver hair catching the stage. Lights. As he and the other Zephyrian children left the stage, he looked directly at Katie and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew he had just done something impossible to beat. Katie felt her hands shaking. How could she follow that performance with just a simple song? The Zephyrians had created actual magic with their voices. They had made light and beauty that filled the entire amphitheater. What could one human girl with no special abilities possibly do to compare? Professor Zek Mori returned to the stage. "And now," she announced, "representing the planet Earth and the human species, we have Katie Morrison." Katie's legs felt like water as she walked onto the stage. The lights were much brighter than she had expected, and she could barely see the audience beyond the glare, but she could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her, waiting to see what humans could do. She reached the center of the stage and looked out at the crowd. In the front row, she could see Ambassador Vex Nora sitting with the other important visitors. The ambassador's face showed polite interest, but Katie could tell she was expecting to be embarrassed by what was about to happen. Katie could hear whispers from the audience. Some aliens were wondering why there were no instruments or special effects. Others were asking their neighbors what humans were known for culturally. A few were already looking at their watches, eager for this part of the program to end. Behind the curtain, Katie could see Krixtal and the other student performers watching her. The Zephyrian boy's arms were crossed, and he was still smiling, that superior smile. He expected her to fail spectacularly and prove once and for all that humans did not belong among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. Katie took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her great-grandmother singing in the kitchen while sunlight streamed through the windows. She thought about the green hills of Ireland that she had never seen but somehow felt in her heart. She thought about all the people throughout history who had sung this song when they were sad or lonely, or missing someone they loved. The amphitheater fell completely quiet. Even the whispers stopped. Everyone was waiting to see what the little human girl would do. Katie opened her mouth and began to sing. "Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling, from glen to glen and down the mountainside." Her voice was clear and pure, without any electronic enhancement or special effects. It was just a human voice, small and simple in the vast amphitheater. But something in that voice made everyone lean forward to listen more carefully. As Katie continued singing, something unexpected began to happen in the audience. The whispers and rustling completely stopped. The aliens who had been checking their watches put them away. Even the children backstage stopped fidgeting and stood perfectly still. There was something in Katie's voice that none of them had ever heard before. Katie's voice filled the grand amphitheater with the ancient melody of Danny Boy. At first, her singing seemed tiny compared to the magical performances that had come before. There were no dancing lights, no holographic images, no floor shaking, harmonies. Just one small human girl standing alone on the big stage. But as she continued singing, something strange began to happen in the audience. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. It's you. It's you must go and I must bide. Admiral Rex Vorthon, who had been sitting back in his chair with polite attention, suddenly leaned forward. His four eyes, which could see colors that humans could not even imagine, were focused completely on Katie. Something in her voice was reaching him in a way that no performance ever had before. Dr. Yelnazia, the famous cultural expert, stopped, taking notes on her electronic pad. She had studied the art and music of 100 different worlds, but she had never heard anything like this. The song was so simple, with no advanced techniques or special effects, yet it was doing something to her that she could not understand. In the audience, a Centaurian mother felt water forming in her eyes. Her people were known for being strong and unemotional, but Katie's voice was touching something deep inside her chest. The song was about someone going away and someone else being left behind, and it reminded her of her own son who was far away, on a distant planet. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valleys hushed and white with snow. Katie's voice grew stronger as she sang about love that lasted even when people were separated by time and distance. She was thinking about her great-grandmother who had died 3 years ago but whose memory lived on in this old song. She was thinking about Earth, the home she barely remembered but still missed. She was thinking about all the humans throughout history who had loved and lost and hoped and remembered. Ambassador Vex Nora felt something she had never experienced before. The Zephyrian diplomat was known for her perfect control and sophisticated tastes, but tears were starting to form in her crystalline eyes. The human child's song was so different from Zephyrian music, which focused on technical perfection and beautiful effects. This song was raw and honest and full of feelings that cut right to the heart. Behind the stage curtain, Crixtal's superior smile was slowly fading. He had expected Katie to embarrass herself with primitive human noise, but what he was hearing was not primitive at all. It was something else entirely. Something that made his chest feel tight and strange. The other Zephyrian children stood beside him in complete silence, their mouths slightly open as they listened. "'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so." Katie's voice soared on the word love, and the sound seemed to fill every corner of the vast amphitheater. It was not loud or technically perfect, but it carried something that reached every being in the room regardless of what planet they came from, or how many arms they had, or what color their skin was. In the front row, Captain Morrison from the Earth diplomatic ship felt his throat getting tight. He had not expected much from this performance by a child, but now he realized he was witnessing something historic. This little girl was showing the entire galaxy what made humans special, and she was doing it without even knowing it. The Andromedan children, who had performed their color-changing song so beautifully earlier, found themselves crying golden tears. Their advanced civilization had created music that could paint pictures in the air, but they had somehow lost the ability to create music that painted pictures in the heart. But when ye come, and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead, I well may be. The song turned sadder as Katie sang about death and the hope that love would continue even after life ended. Her voice carried the weight of every human who had ever lost someone they cared about, every person who had ever said goodbye not knowing if they would see each other again. An elderly Centaurian in the back row began making the deep humming sound that his people used when they were deeply moved. He had lived for over 300 years and had seen countless performances, but nothing had ever affected him like this simple human song. The Zephyrian parents in the audience, who had come expecting to see their children's superior abilities confirmed, were now questioning everything they thought they knew about culture and art. Their music could create beauty that dazzled the eyes, but this human child was creating beauty that touched the soul. "You'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me." Katie's voice broke slightly on these lines, not from fear or nervousness, but from the deep emotion of the song itself. She was no longer just singing words she had memorized. She was pouring her heart into every note, sharing something precious and fragile with everyone in the room. Dr. Yelnaja wiped tears from her cheeks and realized that her understanding of galactic culture had just changed forever. She had spent her career studying the most advanced and sophisticated art forms in the galaxy, but she had been missing something crucial. Technical perfection was not the same as emotional truth. The alien children who had been backstage waiting for their turn to perform were now completely focused on Katie. The Andromedan girl who had sung about crystal cities was crying. The Centaurian boy who had told ancient stories was standing with his mouth open in amazement. Even the mechanical beings from the robot planet seemed affected, their electronic eyes glowing brighter than usual. "And I shall hear, though soft you tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be." As Katie sang about love that continued, Beyond death, every being in the amphitheater felt something they rarely experienced. They felt connected to each other and to something larger than themselves. The song was specifically about humans and Earth, but somehow it spoke to universal experiences that every intelligent species shared. Ambassador Vex Nora was now crying openly, her sophisticated composure completely gone. She had dismissed human culture as primitive and unrefined, but this child was showing her that sophistication without emotion was empty. The Zephyrians could make light dance with their voices, but they had forgotten how to make hearts dance. For you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me. Katie's voice rose to the final climax of the song, carrying all the love and loss and hope and beauty that humans had felt for thousands of years. It was not technically perfect like Zephyrian singing. It did not create visual effects like Andromedan music. It did not shake the building like Centaurian stories, but it did something more powerful than any of those things. It reminded every being in that room what it felt like to be alive, to love someone, to lose someone, and to hope that love was stronger than death itself. As the last note of Danny, Boy faded into silence, the grand amphitheater was completely quiet. No one moved. No one breathed. Katie stood alone on the stage, small and vulnerable under the bright lights, having just shared the most precious thing her species had to offer. The silence stretched on, and Katie began to worry that she had failed completely. Maybe the aliens had not understood the song at all. Maybe they thought it was as primitive and boring as they had expected. Then, in the front row, Ambassador Vex Nora began to clap. Ambassador Vex Nora's clapping started slowly, her elegant hands coming together in a steady rhythm. Tears were still streaming down her purple cheeks as she stood up from her seat in the front row. The sound of her applause echoed through the silent amphitheater like drops of water in a deep cave. Then Admiral Rex Vorthan rose to his feet, all four of his arms clapping together in thunderous approval. His alien face, which usually showed no emotion, was filled with wonder and respect. Dr. Yelnasia jumped up next, her electronic pad forgotten on the floor as she applauded with fierce enthusiasm. Within seconds, the entire audience was on their feet. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different worlds were clapping and cheering and making the sounds of appreciation from their home planets. The Centaurians rumbled like distant thunder. The Andromedans chimed like crystal bells. The Zephyrians created harmonious tones that filled the air with music, but it was not just polite applause like Katie had heard after the other performances. This was something different, something powerful and emotional that shook the walls of the grand amphitheater. Many of the aliens were crying, wiping tears from eyes that had never cried during a cultural performance before. Katie stood on the stage, overwhelmed by the response. She had expected to be laughed at or politely ignored. She had never imagined that her simple song could affect so many different kinds of beings in such a deep way. Behind the stage curtain, Crixtal was staring at Katie with completely new eyes. The superior smile was gone from his face, replaced by something that looked like shame and amazement mixed together. He had spent years believing that his people were the most culturally advanced in the galaxy, but this human child had just shown him something he had never experienced before. 2. Other Zephyrian children stood beside him in stunned silence. Vera Lynn, who had questioned whether humans even had culture worth sharing, was crying silver tears. Nix Vor, who had suggested Katie should not participate, was shaking his head in disbelief at what he had just witnessed. The applause continued. For nearly 5 minutes before Professor Zek Mori managed to restore order, she walked onto the stage with tears in her own eyes and put her arm around Katie's shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her musical voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater, "I believe we have all learned something important tonight about the power of authentic expression." Admiral Rex Vorthan stepped forward from the front row. As the highest-ranking official present, his words carried great weight throughout the galaxy. "Young human," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "what you have shared with us tonight is a gift beyond measure. You have shown us that true art does not require advanced technology or special effects. It requires only truth and courage and the willingness to open one's heart to others." Dr. Yelnasia nodded enthusiastically. I have studied the cultural achievements of over 200 species, she said, but I have never encountered anything quite like what we just experienced. This performance will change how we understand art and emotion throughout the galactic community. Katie felt dizzy from all the attention, but she also felt something else growing inside her chest. It was pride, not just for herself but for all of humanity. She had proven that her people had something valuable to offer the galaxy, something that could not be measured by technology or special effects. Captain Morrison from the Earth diplomatic ship approached the stage with obvious emotion on his face. "Katie," he said, "you have done more for human-alien relations in 10 minutes than our diplomats have accomplished in 10 years. You have shown the galaxy who we really are." In the days that followed, news of Katie's performance spread throughout the Federation faster than anyone could have imagined. The recording of Danny Boy became the most downloaded cultural file in galactic history. Beings from hundreds of worlds requested copies to share with their families and friends. Xenomusicologists arrived at New Terra Station from across the galaxy to study what they called the human emotional factor. They wanted to understand how such a simple performance could have such a powerful effect on so many different species. But the most important changes happened right on the station itself. The alien children who had once dismissed human culture now approached Katie with curiosity and respect. They wanted to learn about Earth music and human emotions and the stories behind the songs. Crixtal was the first to apologize. He found Katie in the school library a few days after the recital, his silver hair dim with embarrassment. "I was wrong about humans," he said quietly. "I thought that advanced meant complicated. But your song taught me that sometimes the most powerful things are the simplest ones. Could you teach me to sing like that?" Katie smiled at him, remembering how scared she had been of his judgment just a week earlier. "I can teach you the words," she said, "but the feeling has to come from inside you." Soon, Katie found herself leading informal music sessions where human and alien children learned songs together. She taught them Danny Boy and other traditional Earth songs, while they shared the musical traditions of their own worlds. The combinations they created were unlike anything heard before in the galaxy. Ambassador Vex Nora established a new cultural exchange program based on Katie's performance. Instead of focusing only on the most technically advanced art forms, the program encouraged all species to share their most emotionally meaningful traditions. The result was a renaissance of authentic expression throughout the Federation. Professor Zek Mori changed her teaching methods as well. Along with lessons about galactic history and alien languages, she now included classes about emotional communication and the importance of cultural authenticity. Katie often helped with these lessons, sharing what she had learned about the power of simple, heartfelt expression. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in Katie herself. She was no longer the lonely human child who felt out of place among the aliens. She had become a bridge between species, someone who could help others understand that differences in appearance and ability did not matter as much as the shared experiences of love and loss and hope that connected all intelligent beings. 6 months later, Katie stood once again on the stage of the Grand Amphitheater. This time she was not alone. Beside her stood Crixtal and Vera Lynn and children from a dozen different worlds. They were preparing to perform at the first Galactic Festival of Authentic Expression, an event that had been created in honor of what Katie had started. They began to sing Danny Boy together, each species adding their own voice to the ancient, human melody. The Zephyrians provided harmony that made the air shimmer. The Andromedans added colors that danced gently above their heads. The Centaurians contributed a deep bass that made everyone's chest vibrate with warmth. But underneath all the technical additions was the simple, pure emotion that Katie had shown them. The song was still about love and loss and hope, but now it belonged to the entire galaxy. As Katie listened to dozens of alien voices singing the words her great-grandmother had taught her, she realized that she had accomplished something she never could have imagined. She had not just represented humanity at a school recital. She had helped create a new understanding of what it meant to share culture across the stars. The little girl who had once felt alone and different was now surrounded by friends from across the galaxy, all of them united by the simple truth that The most powerful force in the universe was not technology or magic, but the courage to share what was in your heart. And in the front row of the audience, Ambassador Vex Nora wiped away another tear and smiled, knowing that the galaxy would never be the same.